Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is my old friend HUMZA YOUSAFS again, with some extra emails I've had come my way. Now the topic is something I touched on a video about 10 days ago, where I was discussing some more emails about his mother-in-law and father-in-law getting out of GAZA. And these emails were from the 7th of October. But I did touch on a second email, which was dated the 11th of October. And I've spent some more time looking at this, and I'm thinking about it and some other emails that were pertaining to the offer by someone to take his family out of Gaza on the 11th of October. This is 72 hours after the first incursions from Hamas into Israel. So the first email was sent from a redacted email address. Now what that means is, when you get a FOI from the government, if they don't want to disclose someone's name, they would take away the first part of the email address, and you would see .gov or uk.gov, that sort of stuff would not be redacted. However, this email, as you can see, is totally redacted the email address where it says from up at the top of the page. So we don't know who it's from, but we know it's definitely not a government office, or it would show part of it. And it says, I have contacted 2 of your constituencies this morning to see if HUMZA's wife's parents are still in Gaza, as we have guys on the ground escorting people out of the region. If we can be of any assistance, please contact myself here in Scotland at present, and obviously a number there, or another number on the ground with teams in the region. Now I need to draw your attention to the date and time of this. This is the 11th of October. This kicked off on the 7th, and if you remember at the time, nobody could get in or out Gaza at the time. The borders were shut down. It was days and weeks before anybody got across any borders, and even aid was stopped from getting into Gaza at this point. So this group of people who are on the ground escorting people out of the region must have been there before the 7th of October, because nobody else got there after the 7th of October. Think about what this is. So who was in the area before then, and who had the capability of escorting anybody out of the region, and is now sending an email to the Scottish ministers at the Scottish Parliament asking if they want to be offering their help to get HUMZA's mum and dad out the area. So that's quite murky, and I discussed this in the first video. However, I'm going to now look at some fresh emails for the same thing. So the first email is timed 1:41 PM, so an hour and 40 minutes after the emails came in. Someone within ScotGov, because this was to like a general email address, has forwarded it on to HUMZA YOUSAFS, the First Minister, and his office, saying, good morning, for your consideration. So that's the first anybody's touched it, and they've gave it to HUMZA and his team. Now the next email we see in this chain is 5:48 PM, hours later. Now bear in mind the situation here. HUMZA YOUSAF's mum and mother-in-law and father-in-law are in the area, and his office get this email, and the first correspondence we see is what, 4 hours later. And his private secretary sends to Scott Whiteman, who's the guy in the Department of External Affairs, all this time later, Scott, see below, I'm assuming that we shouldn't do anything with this, but wanted to check in with DEXA colleagues whether you had any offering advice. So what can we read into that? Well, we can read into that for some reason they've spent hours and done nothing so far with this email, offering to help get HUMZA's parents-in-law out of the area. And it seems a bit stinky because they're assuming that we shouldn't be doing anything with this, which suggests it's a body that we shouldn't be looking to help us. What's more bizarre is the response a mere 16 minutes later. Scott Whiteman from the Department of External Affairs responds to the First Minister and Christopher Mackey, that's the First Minister's personal secretary, with a totally redacted response. Okay, we cannot see it. It's got Scott, that's it. You sign off. That's the only thing that you or I, as a member of the public, are allowed to see how the Department of External Affairs guided HUMZA Yousaf's office with this request from somebody on the ground in Gaza, hoping to get them out. Now, if we look at the facts, use a bit of common sense and logic and consider who could it be? Well, it can't be anybody from Britain, sorry, the British government or Scottish government, because the email address has been totally redacted. They're in the area, have obviously been in the area before the 7th, or they couldn't have got in after the 7th, between the 7th and the 11th. Nothing was getting into Gaza, if you remember correctly. So somebody that was already there, and somebody who had the ability to offer help getting folk to safety from that region, I would kind of whittle down to potentially two groups: Hamas or UNRWA. Now, I wouldn't have thought terrorists were contacting the Scottish Government on a general email address, right? I kind of think that probably didn't happen. So that would potentially take Hamas out of the equation. And that leaves us with only one that I can think of. Now, what I'm prepared to do at this point is consider that there might be more than one. I'm open to that suggestion. If anybody can think of any other groups that were in the region at that point who would be able to offer boots on the ground, taking people to safety, then please let me know. But the only one I can think of, excuse me, based on available evidence and advice, would be UNRWA. On the 11th of October, with some emails that are heavily redacted, totally nothing, you can't see how this conversation went after the offer was made. On the 11th of October. Now, on the 14th of October, these things may not be connected. Let me just put that out there. These things may not be connected. But on the 14th of October, the Scottish Government gave a donation of £500,000 to UNRWA. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that these two things are connected. However, plenty of people are. The Scottish Government could probably help explain this quite easily. All they need to do is tell us who it was that offered to help, or indeed the advice given by the Department of External Affairs to the First Minister and his office. But they won't. Because this information I've got is from a third party's FOI, and if they wanted to disclose that information, they could quite easily have done then. Now, we can go into conspiracy theory mode now and put the tinfoil hats on and put two and two together and come up with 74. I totally accept that. And as someone who has got an obvious, don't beat about the bush, I don't like HUMZA Yousaf as a MSP. He's my MSP. I don't see anything he's ever done to help me. And I think he was a terrible First Minister. That's what I base my judgments on him, not on skin colour, religion or any other details. And for those, I do not think he was very good for the country as First Minister. So I'm perfectly going to accept that I might, if I wanted to put two and two together and come up with 5, that could happen with somebody like me who has an obvious disdain for the SNP and indeed all of the First Ministers. But help me here. Tell me, show me, make it make sense. Because if we don't make it make sense, those links will always be made. But this money can somehow helped a situation. If it's not true, satisfy the public by showing them it and showing us who this group were, who 72 hours before we made a large donation of 2 that we made to UNRWA, it would take them right out of the equation and nobody could put 2 and 2 together and come up with the wrong answer. So I hope there are some journalists working with this information, and hopefully it will be a bigger noise going forward and somebody can just give us the answers that the Scottish public deserve. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and the notification bell But most importantly of all, unless you're HUMZA Yousaf, the SNP, or any of the remaining cult.
Have a great day. Cheery bye now.